The QPR podcast is in association with 101greatgoals.com. For post-match Premier League press conferences, FIFA 15 videos, freestyle clips and much more, subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/101greatgoalsyt.
QPR, QPR, Brisbane Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for the European Cup.
Hello and welcome to the QPR podcast. It's got a live one next week in the good ship Kilburn on Tuesday. Please come down and support the podcast, because without you we can't function. It literally means turn up, get a ticket and support us. Anyway, enough of a plea. I'm joined tonight, this is Paul Finney by the way, just in case you didn't notice, by, well, you might not have noticed. I've had a terrible week, but we'll get on that in a second. Clive Whittingham.
How you doing?
From Lawful Words.
Thank you. You got that wrong.
You're here. How are you?
Great, yeah, terrific. Really enthused and optimistic about everything, yeah.
Keeping well?
Yeah, great. Still alive.
Brilliant. Did you go on the pitch on Saturday?
I think you should move on to the next person. Right. Did I go on the pitch to see our wonderful footballers and sing Tony Fernandez's name? No, Paul.
Right. We're also joined by Chris Mendes, of course. David Fraser always says I've talked sport of everything, but I'm just going to say...
I don't work for TalkSport.
No, but
so David Fraser doesn't say that?
No. He used to. Chris Mendes of ITV Sport, used to be of TalkSport. Shut up in the corner person laughing. And, and without her, Joel, how are you? You keeping well?
Not too bad. I'm a bit hay feverish, but yeah, good.
You're a bit, aren't you?
Heavy weekend.
And you're stuck beside a load of flowers.
I know,
as well.
It's beautiful. And we've just heard that what's been happening in this room in the past few years.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. If you want to keep having this room for free, we don't talk about that.
We're also joined by Martin Millard. Is it Millard?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, got it right, sorry. Who's also in a band called Orange Goblin, I believe.
Yeah, you got that right too, well done.
Yep. I'm being patronised me on put. There's going to be laws against that sort of thing. People just can't come in here and patronise me. That's like, really, that's his job. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, man. Nice to see you here.
Thanks for having us.
It's your first one.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Right, we've also got Welcome Paul Hull, who sits near me and is a plumber, and he's very good. Hello, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
And a QPR fan. We're all Rangers fans, apart from our engineer, who's somebody
An
else.
Arsenal fan, apparently.
He is, to be fair. Welcome to the podcast, Paul. Nice to see you here the first time.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
We're gonna this week. We're gonna just last week's. By the way, Sean Walsh, if you're listening, I'm sorry you didn't last past 12 minutes. I do apologise. I didn't think last week was that bad, but then I didn't listen back to it. So, did anyone listen to the podcast?
I did, yeah.
What do you think?
As I said earlier, I thought it was therapeutic. You had to get all the
The bit where you said earlier, we do
angst.
It sounds like
What you mean? We just turn up and met.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm fishing. I'm not. Carry on, Martin. Favourite guest ever.
It was therapeutic. I listened to it. I thought it was all right. I didn't mind it.
Oh, okay.
You had to get all the angst and you had to talk about it.
Would it have been wrong to have a podcast where you tried to be funny when you've just been relegated? That's why I thought afterwards. I didn't really know. Do you know what I mean, Clive? What did you come in and you just ignore the whole season and go, "Hey, welcome to the podcast. It's great to be relegated." I don't know.
We knew it was coming. So.
What are you going to do? Lie?
Well, this is it. And people going on there said, "Oh, it's a bit depressing. It's a bit," and I do appreciate people listening because we rely on feedback, but we are allowed the one season kind of moan up, are we not? Where you kind of put all your eggs in one basket and realise that all the bad eggs have actually took you down. It was a bit heartbreaking, and that's what annoys me. Right, let's start the podcast on one theme. Saturday, people on the pitch celebrating relegation. Am I the only person that finds that really weird, or do we all find that a bit strange?
I find it weird every year, to be honest. There's no need to be on there, but I mean, if you're celebrating something like really like promotion, then of course, I can understand that. Like against Wigan, I can understand their overpour emotion last season.
Oldham,
of course, but I don't know. I don't really get the end of season pitch run.
I think, to be honest, Paul, I think the reason people actually went on there was to show the support for the club, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think people were actually there actually celebrating. I think some people on there probably protesting, like you see that mercenary out sign. And I think personally it was just maybe just a little bit of over-exuberance at times. But it was, I think it's more of a support to say we are QPR, and then people on the pitch will be there back next season To be honest, that's how I looked at it.
Should have given him a ball, have some trials. We need some players for next season.
Maybe, to be honest. I mean, I think there was a good running down the wings I see there, like, to be honest, yeah. But
what do you think, Clive?
I think I haven't seen a match this week anywhere where it's been somebody's last home game and people haven't run on the pitch, and I don't remember that being the case sort of even 10 years ago. It seems to be this weird thing that's grown up now. It's the last game of the season, regardless of what's happened, we all run on the pitch, and I don't really understand that. The only time that it's actually sort of genuinely annoyed me was when they were trying to take the championship trophy around the whole pitch, and it didn't get the whole way round because people kept coming on and whatever. That's the only time it really annoyed me. If you want to run on the pitch and jump up and down and sing Tony Fernandez's name after this season, then more power to your elbow. I'm going back to the Crown.
Excellent. Well, you didn't really say what you felt there, Clive. I do sometimes wonder if you should get off the fence and say what you really think, because you mess around with your words.
Well,
don't say it as it is.
People need their heads examining.
See, it was a bit weird for me Saturday because I went to work and I heard the interview with Les Ferdinand in the van when it was working, and it was kind of weird because Les was kind of like saying QPR is renowned for bringing in players from non-league and youth team and everything else. And then I think, yeah, but
20 years ago, Paul.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, I know, but it is. But then then you look at things, you think, well, Southampton have got an academy in Ladbroke Grove, Norwich have got one round the corner, whatever. This should not happen because if Rangers weren't, am I wrong? I don't know how these things work, but I was thinking if you're on top of your game, you should not let these things happen, and you're kind of sleepwalking when this sort of thing happens. And maybe that's the thing that QPR have been doing. Everyone keeps saying lessons learned and this. I've been banging on for years that we don't involve the community enough, we don't scout enough, we don't have the right youth structure enough, and it's all been sticky to it by the fact that we've managed to bring players in and get promotion and everyone forgets, but this has been coming for a hell of a long time, if we're honest.
We've never done that, really. Looking back, we've never done that for as long as I can remember in the community. I mean, we should start for sure, but we've never really. You've got a whole great estate there for the thousands of people who we don't tap into enough, I don't think.
Okay.
We haven't unearthed anyone in years. Not even someone who's not necessarily raised for our youth system, but someone plucked out of non-league, like a John,
Les Ferdinand.
Yeah, or someone. Everton have done it even with players who were playing in like Seamus Coleman was.
Well, there was a certain player that went to Liverpool,
grand.
wasn't there?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But the thing is, we used to get them. I mean, going back, we got one of the first to come over from the Irish non-league circuit was McGee, if I'm right, in the 70s, and and then we had like Mac with each. I'm not talking about myself here, being Irish, and then with Dave McCreary, we had Billy Hamilton. We seemed, we seemed to have the right scouts at the right place who could identify a player. We sold.
Why don't they get scouts to go up to the north of the country as well? If it's too populated, they should, maybe think outside the box. If Norwich and Southampton are doing it down there.
We're not going to have a moan up. We're just going to say, I'm going to go to Paul, come to you in a second. Clive, where have we gone wrong in the last 4 years? And keep it brief because people have got work to do tomorrow.
Christ, on a tiny motorbike. You want me to do that briefly? Basically anything we could have done wrong over the last 4 years, we have.
Okay.
So if that's it briefly. We haven't made a right move.
So when they say lessons learned, when they say that we've learned...
Well, it's rubbish, isn't it? You can look at the squad we've got and look at the coverage we had last week and look at the league table. It's absolute rubbish. The only difference between this team and the previous team that went down is they've managed to keep a lid on all this so-and-so refused to come off the bench and so-and-so stormed out in the team hotel until the end of the season, whereas last time with Basinga and whatever, it all came out during the season. So there was that poison sort of during the season, and they've managed to keep a lid on that. The things that we were discussing there, they're not quick fixes. You can't just open a youth academy. You can't just set up a scouting operation. You can't, just open a training ground or whatever. What we've essentially done is wasted 4 years and 200 million quid. So, I mean, we can start all that now, but it's not going to be a quick fix. And as I've said on this podcast before recently, Redknapp got pelters for not picking the kids. And absolutely rightly so. I think he did things last season in the Championship, like playing Luke Young at centre-back in a meaningless game at Blackburn, when we already knew what position we were going to be in. Yeah. And Luke Young, who's not a centre-back and hadn't played for 2 years, he picked him at centre-back. So, and he signed a Gucci Onyewu and didn't use him. Why couldn't Maxima have sat on the bench? So he got pelters for doing things like that, and absolutely rightly so. But Chris Ramsey came in and he picked Darnell Furlong, who I thought played well at Hull, and got schooled by Sanchez and got schooled by Balassi when he had no help from Wright Phillips. Okay, but we didn't have any other right backs to pick at that point. It's not like he put him in ahead of anybody. We had injuries and whatever. He did exactly what Redknapp had been getting pelters for, and because Furlong had a bad time in the Arsenal Palace game, suddenly all the people that were giving Redknapp pelters were going, well, yeah, but I wouldn't have picked him in that game. We should have signed some more players in January. So while this attitude that we should always sign more players continues, that's just going to prevail at the club, isn't it? We're always, if we'd appointed a different manager and signed 5 different players. That's been the attitude at QPR for the last 4 years. Everything can be fixed by 5 more signings. And as long as that prevails, then you can talk about your youth academies and training ground, whatever, until you're blue in the face, because that's all they've done in 4 years. Just sign more players.
Happy thoughts, people. Happy thoughts.
You did ask.
No, and quite rightly. So, but then what? So the solution to the problem we've got to try and keep listeners. So
Les Ferdinand's a solution. We hope.
Yeah.
I really, really hope he is. He's saying a lot of right stuff. He's the barman at the Last Chance Saloon, isn't he? I just really hope that he is right, because he's said a lot of the right stuff.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, there has to be more to it than him just being a club legend. And I'm sure he has a plan, and it has to go, like Clive said, it has to go beyond this transfer window, and he has to have a plan in place for the next one, depending on how we're doing, and the one after that, depending on whether we've stayed up, gone down, or gone back up to the Premier League. There has to be like a long-term strategy and vision in place, and it is a big thing on him. That's why Ramsey, I think, is a sensible choice, because whoever the manager is to take over, he has to get on with Ferdinand and has to have a good working relationship with him.
So you think Ramsey is actually a good choice for manager and to take us forward, or coach?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think there are drawbacks. There are a lot of drawbacks, and there are a lot of things that I'm not sure about with him. Like, I've seen a lot of the football we've played has been, centre-backs at full-back and knocking it long to Bobby Zamora. Now, is that a man working with what he's got? I think it probably is. But I don't want to see him go out giving a chance to put his team together and he just goes and buys the championship equivalent of Bobby Zamora and we're playing Rotherham on a Tuesday night, punting it long like that next season. But he's already a year into the club and 6 months into the job, so he's going to know all of the drawbacks and challenges that comes with it. And he's already sort of well in with the squad, and he's going to know what we need. So I think there is a strong argument for giving him the job.
What would I say about Chris Ramsey? Some of these team selections at times have been questionable, especially maybe the Palace away game and that. But we played a lot better football underneath him with his leadership. And some players, it's like Matty Phillips, he's been absolutely... If it was a straw poll under Chris Ramsey, player of the season, he would be player of the season under Chris Ramsey, yeah? And then obviously the question's got to be, how can Harry Redknapp can more or less destroy a player like him? I think he's got the most assists in Europe. Yeah. I mean, for a club that's been relegated, I mean, that's phenomenal, really. But you got the guy, Chris Ramsey, has obviously got a skill with training and man management. I just think he needs something else to come alongside him to help him maybe do the sort of like the day-to-day management of the actual football team. Well, we're going to be in a championship next year. We could be maybe under a transfer embargo or something like that. We don't know what's going to happen. But I think we need to bring something else alongside him. The guy's obviously got a talent, that is for certain. Because to turn a play like that, I mean, he looked dead and buried under Harry Redknapp.
I think that Phillips stands as a sort of, a big thing on Chris Ramsey's profile as a reason you would give him the job. Because, like I've said, all the solution since this board and probably the previous board as well has always been to sign 5 more players. And if they don't immediately hit the ground running and they're doing well, then, he's crap. It was a bad signing. Get another signing. What Ramsey's done with Phillips is he's improved a player. He's coached a player, and a player who wasn't playing well has improved. So you might have said at Christmas, we need a right winger. Well, we don't now, because we've improved Matt Phillips. We've actually coached someone and improved him. And I can't remember, apart from Charlie Austin, who was a bloody good centre-forward when he arrived, players, it's not just there's been no youth team players coming in, it's been players... What player has come to QPR in the last 4 or 5 years and actually improved on what they were before? I would say almost none. So that he improved Matt Phillips. So that's another sort of positive. You think maybe you could do that with other players?
I think going back to Les, I think he has to be left to do the job. Like how long has he been? 6 months, and already I'm seeing Rangers fans on social media saying it's it's publicity stunt, it's this, that. He has to. I mean, it's got to be a long-term plan. I mean, we're not really going to see what he's doing for another probably 2 to 3 years, I reckon. So they've just got to leave him be and leave him get on with it. And and I think his heart's there, obviously, but they're not going to bring someone in just to be, well, the cynical people would say if they brought him in to, be the face of the club and take some of the pressure away from people behind him. But I'm not that. I'm a cynical man, but I don't think I'm that cynical. So
I maybe am that cynical, and I think that is a strong possibility. I hope that it goes
it's
really
not that,
that it's not that, but that is a possibility.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with both of you. I do think it would be crazy if they did that, but at the same time, if Les Ferdinand had not played for QPR, there's no way they would have given him that job.
No,
that's true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the purge of QPR people working at QPR that Palladini basically, breathed fire over anybody with any kind of QPR connection that worked at QPR, because then
I mentioned I was banned under him. No, carry on.
Because then you can't, you can't operate in the way that Palladini and later Briatore wanted to operate. If there are QPR people that
fans want QPR people in the club, but then when someone comes in, it's all a front. So we can't have it. It's either we can't. It's not both ways. So we have to kind of just go, okay, this is the situation. And I agree. Some of the decisions made over the last few years have been, consistently poor. So the scepticism is there from all of us. But I think we have to give Les some time to get his ideas and thoughts and processes into place. Otherwise, we're going to go round and round in circles, shooting ourselves in the foot.
There was a thread on our message board last week just titled "What does Les Ferdinand actually do?" He's been here 6 months.
Well,
what on earth do you want from me, director of football at a club with long-term problems? What do you want?
He probably stopped us signing some people in January. That would have been a mistake. You don't know, yeah.
No one knows. I mean, the thing is, my take in January was Redknapp's revenge. He knew that Les coming in was going to undermine him, whether he liked it or not, because he couldn't get away with things. He knew that Tony had lost faith in him, because otherwise why would he bring Les in? So he was trying whatever he could do, in my opinion, to screw us over. And he did a brilliant job, because we couldn't sign anyone, we couldn't improve the squad or deeper, we couldn't get players out on loan, we couldn't do this, couldn't do that.
I think Chris has got it right. I think Redknapp tried to sign all the usual Redknapp players you would have expected him to sign in January and got stopped. Yeah. And so he, like you say, thought, well, that's how it's going to be. My position's gone here, so I'm going to wait until the day after the transfer window closes, and then I'm going to resign.
Right, enough talk about where we've been, where we're going to. Somebody last week was quite outspoken in his views of the whole thing of QPR, and that was Peter Hucker, and I think we should give Peter a ring and see what he's got to say for himself. We're going to give him a ring. Hi, Peter. Last week on Twitter, you said a few things about QPR and about your club and how you felt it was all going very wrong on Twitter. What did you actually mean by that?
I'm just getting fed up with people blaming everybody for this and blaming everyone for that. At the end of the day, what's happened has happened. It's happened before. Get over it. Get on with it. Stop bringing the club down. Simple.
What do you mean, like players, fans, or?
Oh, everybody. Everybody was, that there wasn't anything positive being said about the club at all. Now, if you've got nothing positive to say, don't say anything. Everybody's gutted. Everybody's down. I'm sure the players didn't intend to get relegated. I'm sure the managers who've been there didn't intend to get relegated. I'm sure the chairman doesn't intend to get relegated. Whatever's gone wrong has gone wrong. Now's the time to shut up, put up, and start putting it right.
What does the club need to do to put it right, Peter? Where do we start?
Well, I think you've got to sort your management out. Make sure they're there. They know how long they're going to be there for. Give them the money they need to build, but not stupid money. I think with Les Ferdinand, they've probably got somebody in place who knows a little bit more about the game. Will know who's worth what. Hopefully. They've got to rebuild their youth policy, that is for sure. From what I'm seeing there, that's a disaster. I'm just going back in the day when they were producing player after player after player, and the spirit and the whole club. I don't know how it works with QPR at the moment, but I know how it works with other clubs. When I was 13, during the holidays, I used to go and train with the first team. We used to be together. It used to be a whole thing. You know, you were there, you were amongst them, you were around them. Now it just seems like there's the first team are there. They do exactly what they want, how they want. There doesn't seem to be any respect in the club anymore for anybody. I don't know. I just got fed up with reading about it.
Do you think Chris Ramsey's the right man now to lead them forward? Someone who's worked in youths, who could possibly integrate all of the age groups and make the club? No, you don't.
Not in that respect. You need a first team manager who can look after the first team. But what you need is to get these kids feeling they're part of the club. When I went to QPR, wasn't one of the biggest clubs in the world. Had some great players in it. Were just coming through. I had the opportunity to go to Arsenal. I had the opportunity to go to Chelsea.
Please don't swear the podcast.
Was 2 hours travelling, twice a week. But just felt so at home there. It was the only club that I'd choose. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think the last incumbents of the youth system weren't the best choices, having worked with them before.
The thing is, Peter, when you came to QPR and you met Jim Gregory, what was that like? I mean, were you told about the history of the club? What did you feel part of it? But Jim Gregory was quite a formidable character, wasn't he? Yeah,
Jim. I mean, you don't get involved with Jim until you're a professional and you're signing contracts. But nowadays the players don't even go in and sign their contracts, do they? They just send some two-bob agent in to screw as much money as they can out of them, because if you don't get paid, the agent don't get paid. In my day, to sign professional, I signed professional with Dave Sexton, and he was there when I signed. He was the manager of the club, he was director of the club. And then, as you go on, you get to meet Jim Gregory a little bit more. But, the thing with Jim Gregory, local boy, loved his club. Simple. Now, there's about 5 chairmen now you can say that about. I was reading a little bit today, and Tony Fernandez, I think, has got all the right will, but just again, I saw a quote today where he said, QPR has done my airline business the world of good. Yeah. Well, surely that's not the way to work, is it? You don't buy a club to make one of your other businesses look good. You'd never get Jim Gregory doing that.
Is one of the problems at QPR now sort of standards of behaviour, among the players? It seems to be all about individuals and egos and their own profile, and rather than the sort of collective will of the team. When you were at QPR, was it there were people that would quickly get you in line if you were like that? Is it? And have you seen those standards slip in the sort of modern era?
Yeah, definitely in the modern era. Not just QPR. Too many players. Too much money. At the end of the day, there's too much money in football. They're demanding ridiculous amounts of money and holding the guns to chairmen's heads. I the chairman have got to turn around and say, yeah, you probably are one of the best players in the world, but hey ho, go and play somewhere else.
Well, that's an interesting when you say that, Peter, because we won't mention names, but there's 2 ex-players, well, one current player, one ex-player having around Twitter last week, and actually we will mention names, Joey Barton and Rodney Marsh, where Joey turned around more or less to Rodney and said, you wouldn't last in the modern game, etc. How do you think that's true? Is it fair to compare generations to generations with football? Or because when I remember being a kid, the balls were heavy, the boots weren't the same, so it works both ways, surely, doesn't it? Jody Best would be a good player today, Stan Bowles would be a good player today, Rodney Marsh would be a good player today. Does it really matter, do you think, or has Joey got a point?
Right, but everybody has their own era. That's in all walks of life. Everything has their own era. Just silly thing like a telephone. You'd have to go down the end of the road to a phone box to make a phone call. It had its era. That's not to say that system wasn't as good as the system now. It's just different. And I do agree. Players are a lot fitter. The game is a lot quicker. The balls are lighter. The money's ridiculous. It's just above everybody's wildest dreams, the money. But I think the money goes to their head too quickly. As I said, I was playing in the reserves at 15 years old. And when I went in my first game, I played Arsenal reserves at Highbury I played a school game in the morning, went to Highbury in the afternoon to play in a reserve game. Malcolm McDonald was playing on the other team. I walked in there, I had my own boots, my own gloves, and that was it. Now you see 11-year-olds walking about with £200 or £300 worth of equipment and thinking that they've made it, whatever club's academy they're at. No, they're 11-year-olds, So I think it's rotten all the way through. People have got to get back to the values that you play football for the enjoyment, first of all, not for the money. Rodney Marsh played for the enjoyment. Stan Bowles played for the enjoyment. Now, I understand you have to earn a living. There's no doubt in that. But, the amounts they earn today are just ridiculous. So I just think everybody's era is their era. But you can't go disrespecting a player of Rodney Marsh's ability. We went out and played for him when he was manager at Tampa. And I don't know how old he was then, maybe 50. He was doing things with the football Jay Barton couldn't even dream of, when he was 50. Don't disrespect people.
Peter,
that's your job. Let them do their job. I saw all the comments. All it was, what Rodney Marsh was saying, was that if you don't know what your agent's saying, sack him. But we all know that he probably does know what he's saying. Otherwise, you would sack him, wouldn't you?
Well, Peter, that's the thing. Even if Joey Barton does have a point about players from a bygone era not sort of coping very well in the modern game with all the speed and the fitness, is it right that the captain of QPR on the eve of a match is spending his time coating off someone who by any sort of standard was one of our greatest ever players? Is it right that modern day QPR players are doing that? Does that not say something about the standards that the squad is currently being held to?
Absolutely. That is it. What right has he got to slag off people that he probably never even saw play, doesn't know anything about them? And that's not knowing the history of your club, and that is the way of the game now. When I played, I was a London boy, I played for a London club. You knew all the players. I came from West Ham's era, so Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, Martin Peters were like gods to people, where I lived. But you knew the thing, and you'd never dream of slagging them off. And at the end of the day, what's the point? What point is he making? I don't understand what... I think the problem with Joey is he likes to have an opinion on everything. Well, have an opinion on anything. Keep it to yourself. Everybody else does.
That's very true. Now, one thing I will talk to you about, Peter, and I'm going to bring things back a wee bit. Like to the FA Cup final... Yeah. That was being a kid in Ireland. I know everyone who listens to the podcast knows that I might be Irish and also dyslexic and celiac. I know all that. But that was the first time I seen QPR live. And that shows you how much the world has changed, because basically next season, even though we're in the Championship, people are going to see loads of live QPR games all around the world. But when I was a kid, that was my first ever live QPR game. And I cried my eyes out. What was it like for you?
Well, I think the first thing, for me personally, I'd go, I can't remember what it was, my 20th senior game or something silly like that. There I was suddenly playing the cup final, when at the time they still actually meant something. To play at Wembley was an honour and a privilege because not many people did it,
I'm getting misty-eyed thinking about it.
Sorry?
Even now I'm getting misty-eyed thinking about it when I was 10 or 11 at the time, just sitting on TV, seeing Rangers on TV. But you were on the coach that I was watching going to the stadium. What was that like?
Oh, just incredible. The fans at the side of the road. It was party atmosphere. Good for us because we were the underdogs. We were a second division side against Tottenham mighty side. At the time, weren't given much hope. So for me, I went into that game personally with I can't really lose here. If they beat us 4-0, everyone will go, Tottenham are great. They beat, what a great team. If we won, it would have been, something beyond our belief. Although Wimbledon, did it later, beat a side that where they were underdogs. But for us to score so late, it was like on the first game, it was like winning. We were much more disappointed with the second game when we thought we outplayed them and didn't actually get the breaks. If we'd have lost 4-1 in the first game, we'd have put our hands up and gone, yeah, they probably had that many more chances than we did. They were probably slightly the better side on that first day, but to have etched out a draw right at the death, I mean, that was like winning, because you're probably 2 or 3 minutes away. You're just thinking, tired legs, we're not going to get anything, and it really is. We've got one last chance, and it's a throw-in, and just chuck everybody up there, and it worked. But then we went out and played the second game, where we really felt that we outplayed Spurs. And we were more disappointed, I think, the fact that we'd outplayed them and lost. Again, if they'd have outplayed us and beat us, but we just didn't get the rub of the green in the replay.
Hello, Peter. It's Paul Hull. I was fortunate enough to be at both them 2 games, and one thing I always remember was actually the sheer pride of all the QPR fans, but especially when the boys walked out and they had the blue and white tracksuit tops on at Wembley, and because just seeing the blue and white hoops for the first time walk out at Wembley was actually phenomenal. And
very Venables.
I was always the ticket for that game was actually £5 to stand there on that day, which is obviously something which modern football fans probably find amazing. But I just always remember, Pete, and I've got to say thank you, your performance in 2 games, especially the first game, you was actually phenomenal, mate. And it's something that my dad, my granddad, who's now not with us anymore, we've always talked about you, Peter, and I just like personally to thank you about doing a Finney line. It was personally I'd like to thank you there, Peter. It's actually amazing, mate. So,
thanks. I'm glad that it gave some pride to the club. I've been there since I was 13. I was 22 really when I first got into the side. I played a game sort of as a young kid. I've been put out on loan here, and I was getting to the point where I love this club, but to play football I'm going to have to go. And then all of a sudden everything changed, and I was just happy that I could repay firstly Terry Venables' faith in me, because to be fair, he's going with John Burridge was a tried and tested goalkeeper, and here I was, all right, I played well in reserve games, and I'm sure they were, but then to throw me in, and it was the 3rd round of the Cup that year, the first game, it could have gone horribly wrong right at the start. But I just felt so relaxed with it. As I said, we were the underdogs on the day. My goalkeeping coach, Bob Wilson, was working for BBC, and he said, "I'll come behind your goal." He said, "I'll stand behind your goal." And every time the ball went behind, I was just having a laugh and a joke with him. And he said, I've never seen somebody so relaxed. But as I said, I've had nothing to lose. I have a great game. Everyone goes, "Oh, wonder kid, fantastic, brilliant, blah, blah." Made a couple of mistakes. It was been a young kid, bit nervous. So I never felt I had anything to lose, really.
What I want to ask you, when your man took that penalty?
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Because I know what was going through mine, which is feck. So what was going through yours?
Always, nearly all penalties, I always picked a side, guessed. And if I was right, I was right. If I was wrong, I was wrong. And to be fair, over my career at QPR, I had quite a good penalty saving record thing. But it is I just guessed. You try and look at the shape of their run up. Players today, it's much harder to tell. The shorter the run up, the harder it was. But you just tried to guess, if I'm honest, and didn't work out for me that day.
No, not me.
Peter, what made Terry Venables so good at QPR?
Just man management. Absolutely knew how to handle every single player. Who to put his arm round, who to kick up the backside. He's every single day in training there was something new. He's gone away and thought about something. I think his biggest problem came coming towards the end. We had 15 variations on a free kick. And poor Ian Stewart couldn't remember the first 2.
Good old Ian. Good old Ian.
Yeah, great player that he was. But Venice used to do a couple, and then when he got a couple wrong, he went, "Oh, Stewie, just do what you want." but he was, and he was funny. Terry was funny. Every training session was a laugh. Alan Harris was his sidekick, and I can tell you some great stories about one of the stories we had. We used to come out and it was. I think there was an international week on, so a few players were missing. And I think there was 12 of us coming out, and Harry went, "Oh, great today." He said, 12 of us, we can have a five-a-side." And just was one of them. And then Terry had sent him up to Aston Villa to watch a game, and we were playing them on the Saturday. So we're in the hotel doing the team talk, and he said, "I'm going to hand over to Alan," he said, "because he's watched them play, and he'll do the team talk thing." So Harry's going, "Yeah, well, I've got so-and-so, he's big, good at the fast stick, and this, that, and the other." He said, "But they're fullbacks, Stewie." He said, "You'll take him to the pictures." And immediately, Feathers stood up. He said, "You have to excuse Harry." He said, "Where he lives, the pictures is next door to the cleaners."
Fantastic.
But just as quick as that, he was. I think Feathers loved Alan Harris because he made hundreds of mistakes, and Feathers sort of fed off them. That was funny. And one last one, we were out doing a training session. There was Alan Harris and Frank McClintock were taking it. So he said, "We're going to do some sprints, boys." He said, "What, you ought to turn your backs to me and Frank." He said, "If I clap, you run towards me, and if Frank claps, you run the other way." So we're all standing there with our backs to him. How the fuck do we do? He didn't see it. That's the funniest thing was he didn't see it. And we're just creasing about, and Alan's going, "What? No. So that was it. That was the camaraderie. That was the team spirit. We would play, when I first got there, even under Dave Sexton, they played reserves against first team, and you would think it was an all-out war. It weren't no kickabout. There was no quarter given. But at the end of the day, there were no fights either. Everyone knew what to expect. Everybody respected everybody. It was just different. I don't think I'd like to be in a dressing room in today's football. I just think that era's gone now. Wouldn't speak the language, and most of them anyway. So,
Peter, it was a two-part question. The second part is, what made Alan Mullery so bad?
Where shall I start? If I told you our first meeting with Alan Mullery, is it all right to swear?
Yes.
And
Yes.
he got us all in and said, "Okay, guys," he said, "I've been a Barclays banker as a coach and a manager." He said, "And I don't expect to do a lot better now." He said, "But I'll give it a go if you're all with me." That's what he said.
Great start.
That was his opening thing. I've never seen so many players square up to a manager at different times. There must have been 4 or 5 players who went nose to nose with him.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was awful. Yeah. Awful. It was an absolute joke. He had no, we'd come from probably the best tactician in England to probably the most naive, in one foul swoop. And in between, Gordon Jago came and went in 7 days. But, we went from Terry Venables to Alan Mullery, and it was ridiculous. He was never, he was putting on sessions that people just saying, "Well, what are we doing? I don't understand what we're doing." We don't, and he'd look and go, and in fact say, yeah, I don't really understand either. But, it's your session.
Did that include Did that include trips to Belgrade as well?
Sorry?
Did that include the trip to Belgrade as well?
The trip to Belgrade, but when he came down the dressing room and said, "I've got to get back on the pitch because there's extra time."
Yeah. It's not so funny, really, is it? But really, did he do? Is that actually true? Seriously?
That is true.
No.
That is true. The dressing rooms came up behind the goals. We came up the stairs behind one of the goals, and we were in that goal second half. Obviously dejected, whatever, absolutely gutted. Again, Mullery's tactic said, you know what we're going to do today? He said, we're going to cash them out. We'll play one up front. And we thought, well, that's okay. I understand that. He said, yeah. He said, but we're going to play him wide. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and the man he played wide was Clive Allen, who couldn't play wide. If you give him, you stick him in the penalty box, he'll score you 10 goals. But we're going to play wide. You've got to try and hit him wide. And that's why, if I remember rightly, their sweeper, I think, scored 3 goals because he had a big cigar and slippers on. Didn't have anything to do. So he came up and totally, outfoxed us. But no, end of the game, dejected, walked down the tunnel, just getting to the dressing room door, Muller's come running down. Pete, you've got to get back up. It's extra time. Why? It's extra time. Why? We've lost away goals, Alan. No, you've got to have extra time. Yeah, and I just looked at him and I just laughed. And we didn't get on after that.
You know what? Can I just say, from a wee kid in Belfast, did I mention Belfast yet? Probably. Yeah. Thank you. I tell you what, I cried my eyes out. But it was with pride because of what you and the boys did and getting to the FA Cup final. Thank you so much. Everyone in my school had heard of QPR on the Monday after the Saturday, and for all the wrong reasons after the replay, but it doesn't matter about that. And that was my proudest moment. So thank you and the rest of the lads. You made me very proud, and thank you for what you've done for our football club. And Peter, please come on sometime to the Pilcast and come in. We'll have a pint afterwards.
Absolutely, no problem.
You're a good man, and look after that wee dog of yours.
I'm going to go and feed him now.
Yeah, probably about 10 people, I think. All right, big man. Thanks a million. Take care of yourself.
All right, take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. Well, I don't know about you, but that actually made me happy.
Yeah, it's cheered me up no end. It's good to know that we've always been ridiculous.
Yeah. But, I don't know, you come into the podcast sometimes, you don't know what to expect, especially if I'm hosting, which is usually a disaster. And people, David is such a better host than me. Anyway, but you come in, you don't know what to expect. We've been relegated. It was Saturday, doesn't really mean anything. We got Sunday, doesn't really mean anything. I could listen to that all day long, every day of the week, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because that was brilliant. That's gold. To me, as a QPR fan, that was gold.
There's one thing I noticed, Paul. Every player you seem to get on the podcast of a certain, if not 80s, 90s era, they all love QPR.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all. I mean, it was something that he was talking about when he came as a young boy at 13. He said, and it meant something to him. And unfortunately, the club that you and I and the other boys, I'm a little bit older than you boys, just a wee bit.
Actually, I think I'm older than you.
I'm not sure. I think in 20 years' time we'll have Basingwa on who'll be like, I just love the club so much.
Maybe so, but you just look at that. It was just something like when I was a boy. I think my first team was 76, and just to get up there and my dad and my granddad, and there's something that gets inbuilt in your blood. And obviously, my boy the other night about against the Chelsea game, they just broke down in tears, and the passion is still there, and it's something we just need to build on as a club, and maybe hopefully we can drop the brand QPR team thing and maybe just become a community club again, which is really which our club is about, really, to be honest.
Of course it is. But do you know what made me kind of think about things? When you're talking to Peter Hucker, your mind goes back to, Mendes is looking at us like, yeah, I wasn't even thought of.
No, mate, I'm just looking at you because I'm about to sneeze.
Excellent, still a point. And you speak to Peter Hucker, and you think, I think you mentioned the blue and white tracksuit tops at Wembley and stuff like that. And there's little things like that make a club. There's little things. There's just that attention to detail. Do you know what I mean, Clive?
Paul makes a good point. The most striking thing about all the people you have on your podcast from the 80s and 90s is that they're, like you say, they're all sort of indoctrinated into the club, but some of them are from weird and wonderful places. Like David Bardsley has got absolutely no previous connection to QPR before he got here. Simon Barker the same. Trevor Sinclair, came on at half time. He was a none of these people had a connection to QPR before they got here, but they went away feeling like it was their club, and you don't think that anybody would go away.
As you actually think that as legends as QPR, how many of them actually come from London? Go for the list. Stan Bowles, right? Go for the list. How many of them
that
actually come from London?
That doesn't necessarily matter, though. The thing is, we were talking about this the other day, funny enough, and in fact, me and Martin were talking about this on Twitter with Kevin Gallen, and about the fact that the club don't seem to be getting youth team players from around the year because they haven't moved in and everything else. You played for the youth team, Martin. How many years ago was that?
Oh my God! Between 91 and 93.
So yeah, that was a
So
good
it's
crop of
20
players.
years.
So how did it work in them days?
I think what I was, we was reading an article and I was kind of disagreeing with it to a certain extent, and they've always come from far and wide. There's only a very few local lads there when I was there. I mean, there really wasn't many. I mean, Kevin, obviously, Danny Dicchio, and then you had Trevor Chalice and Marvin Bryan from Harrow, and then me from Northolt, who the other obviously went on to be professional haulers, and I didn't. But my point being that they were coming. I mean, even for training every day, they weren't local. Some of them Hitchin, Sittingbourne, Margate, coming from far and wide every day. And I don't know if that's how it is now, but I don't see many players. I don't know if they're all local lads now. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but I think the article was saying that they're not choosing the local lads anymore. What kind of my point was, they never have. And I said to you now 2 words: Alan McDonald. He's not a local lad, but we still went 30 years ago. We were still going far and wide. I mean, the year above me was Dougie Friedman. They were all from 3 from Glasgow, 3 from Northern Ireland. 1 from Sunderland. They were from all over the place.
But that was different. I remember being at school. I said one of the reasons I'm a QPR fan. Well, the reason I'm a QPR fan. And Macca's brother put the programme through my door, which basically signed Ian Stewart, Alan McDonald, and I think I'm right. I could be completely wrong. A guy called Fullerton came from Rathcoole, where I was from as well. And they signed these 3 guys from Rathcoole, and I went to Rathcoole Primary, then secondary. Then it was like, well, I might as well be a QPR fan. 91 other clubs. That's what I'm saying. It kind of grows from there. For ridiculously stupid reasons, you support a football club, don't you? You don't have to be from W12. You don't have to be from Acton. You don't have to be. You can be from Queensland and get QPR because you're a QPR fan. This is what I've never understood. Sometimes people say you have to be local, but what I do find, because my mum lives locally to QPR. We don't push ourselves enough, and I've said this for a long time. I go down Albert Grove, and I'm looking and thinking, where's the QPR signs? I see Fulham signs, I see Chelsea signs. God forgive me for swearing on the podcast. I don't see enough of QPR in the area.
That's kind of my point earlier. In that, got that whole estate there opposite the ground, and we don't. I know they've tried to plumb into that and tried. I'm not sure we've done it enough. And there's.
It can't cost much, surely, to stick a few posters up and say we are QPR in that area.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, in and around the Notting Hill, Ladbroke Grove, that's there's a massive amount of people living there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many of the people who go on a Saturday are from, and there is obviously some, but I think there's not many now.
They did a survey a few years ago in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people, they reckon, was Aylesbury was one of the big QPR areas back in the survey they did back in the 90s. So, and maybe that goes back again to something else, which is quite bizarre, because I suppose of people who are born in that area, I don't include myself in that, obviously, with the stupid accent I've got, and their grandfathers, their grandmothers, their aunties, their uncles, their fathers, their mothers, their sisters, their brothers who are no longer here. It's the last link to the area. Going to Loftus Road is that you don't walk through them gates by yourself. You're walking in them gates with your family. Do you know what I mean? And they may not be here anymore.
Paul, you're bang on there, mate. Yeah, right. My granddad's no longer with us, yeah. My granddad sees us play at Parkwell or things like that. And I've always got an identity when I walk in at Loftus Road, and I think, even though my granddad was always edited road man, I was now sitting in South, obviously in front of you. It is a family thing, but obviously London's changed, Paul, and the area's changed. And I probably think on match days, I don't think there's probably more like. I'd be surprised if more than 10% of the people in that ground on Saturday live within 5 miles of the ground. I'll be amazed, to be honest. Yeah.
Just on the youth player front, what category is the youth academy now?
Well,
two about to be 3, despite everything that Tony Fernandez has said about focusing on the youth academy. By all accounts, it's about to be dropped at a grade, because you can promise the QPR fans on Twitter things that never happen and nothing really happens, but you can't promise the FA inspector of your academy that things will happen and then they don't and then nothing happens, because we got category 2. By all accounts, we got category 2 on the promise of things that we're going to.
But we don't ever seem to be settling with an a director of the academy.
No.
It's changed. Seems to be, to me, as an outsider, and I don't pay 100%. It seems it changes every 6 months.
I can't wait to see how if that is right and it is about to, if it is about to be downgraded. I'd love to see how Tony Fernandes is going to spin that, because we're meant to be aiming for Category 1. To get it knocked down to Category 3, the way the EPP rules are basically means that the lower your category is, anybody, if you happen to get a half decent player, anybody with a higher category academy can just come and take it.
Good point.
So all this talk about focus on
That's
the academy
quite
and something, yeah. So if that is right and it is going to be downgraded, I can't wait to see how he's going to spin that one.
Have any of you guys been over to Fulham's academy?
Yes.
Surprisingly not.
Well, it's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
It's absolutely phenomenal.
isn't that frightening that Fulham's academy is that good, and look how badly they've done in similar circumstances to what we're approaching the Championship.
Yeah, but I've got to say, the whole ethos that runs for the whole academy, the whole team plays, it's absolutely phenomenal. I've got to say, I went over there with my involvement in youth football, and I was actually in complete envy. And everyone got up, I not nearly in tears, but it was, and I just couldn't believe how good it was and how great everybody was over there. And I thought we're 10 years behind that.
When I think we're getting the wrap up signs, and I really want to get this in because it fits into a lot about.
I'm not doing it.
It
I'm
fits
hosting.
it fits into.
I'm not Mr.
Never mind.
Fraser.
It fits into
No offence, David.
a lot of what we're talking about, how you get involved in QPR in the first place.
Yeah.
The season ticket prices next year are going to be absolutely massively important, and I am really worried about these because the last time we came out of the Premier League, the plan initially was to freeze them at the Premier League prices and pitch it as, aren't we being generous, it's a price freeze and you're getting 4 more matches. And it was only because the supporters groups went in there and did a really good job, which they didn't get enough credit for, and you won't blow your own trumpet, but you were involved in that, and you went in and you said, you absolutely cannot do that. It's ridiculous to be charging what are already very expensive Premier League prices in the Championship. You can't do it. And we saw when Ian Dowie was the manager briefly here, the poisonous atmosphere that can result at Loftus Road if you get a ticket price decision wrong, because people just turn up and say, well, go on then, let make it worth my however many £100. And it worries me that they haven't met with the supporters groups this time. There's been no word, there's been no consultation or word of what they're intending to do with the season ticket prices. And if they keep them anywhere near what they, I know we're skint. We're not skint, but we've lost a lot of money. But when you're paying Joey Barton £60,000 a week, what's the difference between charging people 500 or 700 quid for a season ticket? All right, and I'm worried that they have not consulted with the supporters groups this time. Worried what they're going to come up with.
When are they announced?
I don't know why they have. Sorry, I don't know how. What you were in the meetings I was in last year. I don't know why they haven't done that. It's a shame they haven't done that because sometimes it works. I'm not going to take credit for it, and other people shouldn't take credit for it. But we were able to say to them, wise up a wee bit here, because if you want to build a grassroots to 40,000 seat stadium, you can't price everyone out. It's a bad start. And I think a fair thing, you saying this, I think in it, is that everyone that's been a member for 3 years get free membership next season. Everyone that's had a season ticket for 4 years gets discount and so forth. They know the fan base, they know who to target, but if they put it up, keep it the same, it will just kill everything because
they won't put it up, surely.
But you don't know. But
I think there's a potential that they may freeze it at the rate it is now and say, well, aren't we generous for freezing the prices? You get 4 more games. Yeah, thanks very much. Swindon, Rotherham, yeah, that's great for 7. I remember that first game in the Dowie reign against Barnsley at home. We went 1-0 down.
Yes.
He picked Cherney instead of Camp, and after 10 minutes of the season, the atmosphere in the place was absolutely horrible. And I felt the same. I felt, well, you're charging me this extortionate amount and we're losing at home to Barnsley, so I'm going to give you some stick. After 10 minutes of the first game. Yeah. And it's going to be tough next year.
Maybe if we renew by a certain date, we'll get speedy boarding on AirAsia flights or something.
Yeah.
Also,
don't put it past.
You want to charge, if they freeze the prices, then away fans won't come at all. I mean, Rotherham fans won't pay 55, it won't be that much, but £45-40 to sit up there, they won't do it. And so the atmosphere again is gone in that respect. So they have to kind of think. They have to think long and hard about what they're going to charge people.
Yeah, there are a number.
Just have to
There are a
think.
number of sort of rip-offs at QPR. Like you have to pay £35 extra on top of your season ticket to be allowed to apply for away tickets first, and
Ridiculous.
you have to pay £3.50 per booking. You know, and there's a lot of rip-offs like that they could get rid of. But fundamentally, you cannot charge £600, £700, £800 for Championship football. And if you do, because it's going to be so tough next year, the atmosphere in that ground is going to be bad. They need to really consider that.
You probably see them. They might keep the prices similar sort of price, and then when they realise they're not selling any tickets, they'll just come up with promotions that will kind of they'll work against people who have bought a season ticket, because they'll sell tickets really cheap on the day.
The thing is, I noticed that before, actually, the last time we went to the Championship. If you actually went for the voucher thing, you're actually saving more money in the season ticket. That's wrong. The thing is, QPR reward loyalty with the correct measure, and that is fill the ground with passion, get rid of the family stand in the lower loft, move it somewhere else, because I've never known a ground ever where there's nothing behind both goals, ever.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
So much got to change. Listen to the fans. Yeah, but
Or the lower school end.
Lower school end, because no one's got any history there. Yeah. To be fair, at lower school end, you can't say you've sat there for 50 years because you'd be lying. So we all know that. So move it to lower school end, make the provisions you can to stop the away fans above from doing anything silly. But most of all, get back the passion. We're missing the passion. This season hasn't been great, we know that. It's been a wee bit rubbish at times. The Chelsea match was good, the Man City match was good, but you're counting them in a single hand. Every game in the second division, was brilliant. Because Rangers made it in, whether it was us against the world, whether it was us with no money, whether it was us because we were there and we had no other choice but to carry the club by ourselves. We did it. And I want to do this for Tony Fernandes. I want to do this for the board. I want to do it. Because the thing is, I'm not anti-Tony Fernandes. I'm not anti-Chris Ramsey. But I want to see QPR doing well. Because if QPR are doing well, we're all happy. But what I don't want is people coming to our football club and stealing a living anymore. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of the false streams. What I want is a QPR that we can all share the dream. Yeah, and with that, we'll go to the hours end of the show, because I'm getting the wind up saying thing. You're going off. Chris.
Chelsea losing, which is a good way to end at the moment. Chelsea losing a football game. Yeah.
Actually, I've got a story about that. I'll say it quickly. For those who don't know, my mum's not well. She's in Chelsea in Westminster Hospital.
This is your legend.
This is kind of, yeah. And I can't... yeah. I had a wee thing myself at the coffee shop where below the hospital, the ground's not far away. From my mum's window, you can actually see Stamford Bridge. God forgive me swearing again. And I went in and I thought... I was quite down because mum wasn't well. And I was... what do you do to try and cheer yourself up? All right. So the woman goes in and she goes, "What's your name?" Which is weird anyway. When you ban a coffee, you don't really expect someone to ask you your name. So I said, it's QPR. And she went, "Well, that's a strange name." I go, "It's my nickname." She went, "Okay." So she goes, "QPR." And I ignored it. And it was full of people with Chelsea bags and everything else because they'd been to the superstore and they'd been down the road and all this sort of thing. And she said it again a wee bit louder. QPR. I ignored that as well. I'm thinking, And then she said it again the third time. QPR went, "You was!" Grabbed me coffee, went out the door, thought I'd done something proper. Everyone else is looking at me strangely like I was some kind of weirdo. But I made my point. And
small as it may be.
Yeah, and I don't care if they've won the league.
It's like Alan Partridge's autobiography where every chapter ends with "Needless to say, I had the last laugh."
I Finney.
Yeah, but necessarily you might have been laughed at more than laughing. I get that. But you know what? That's the thing. I quite enjoyed that as a moment. It was fine. And yeah. Also, to be fair, my last hours in the show is James Evans has been on the podcast a few times. His dad went through an operation. I haven't had a chance to ring James, but I wish him and his dad well, because his dad's got a bit of a battle in his hands, and hopefully you'll do that, James, and you'll get through it with your dad. And one other thing, I'm going to Leicester with Clive on Sunday. We've never got the train together.
Yeah,
this will be an experience.
Well, yeah, okay, I'm not sure who's. Yeah,
it's a scary.
I've been waiting for you to turn around and say get rid of my ticket, but you haven't yet. So.
No, I said it as soon as I brought it off you.
Yeah, but you seem to be keen on going now.
What do you reckon we're going to do?
You'll see.
Really? What is? I don't want a relegation party. And Gabriel, shut up. I don't want a relegation because I've had enough of them. I was at Forest.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I mean, that That was kind of mixed because actually it was quite fun. I mean, it was because it was, we were actually laughing at ourselves. We were pretty bad.
Plus, that Forest game, there was the sense that Chris Wright was taking over the club, and it would actually all be better next year.
There was a little bit. Yeah. I mean, the team was poor. It wasn't. We lost 3-0.
Paul Murray's debut that day, I think.
It was. Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. But we were actually laughing at ourselves.
No,
yes.
it's my show, my rules.
And that's one of the reasons why I've kind of decided to go to Leicester on Sunday. It's because it was actually quite good. It wasn't good, but it was kind of sad in a way. And there was actually one bit where the Forest fans come onto the pitch,
yes,
and they walk right down to the end and actually applauded us. And that's kind of a nice memory.
Weren't sure how that was going to go. To be
no, because it looked like it was going to get nasty, and they started clapping.
Something else that's changed these days: people run on the pitch, and it does get nasty. But anyway,
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in this show. My fault for taking it wrong, Chris. Then we'll go to Martin, then we'll go to Paul. Gabriel, you're an Ulster fan. Doesn't really matter.
I just want to say it was good to see. It was good to see Trevor Sinclair on the pitch at half time, and I agreed with everything he said about getting young, hungry players in the club, and people can't just stealing a living. It was quite fitting that he was saying that while there were loads of them in a dressing room.
And didn't Darren Peacock look like he could still play? Yeah, what a guy!
Wasn't your bit? Carry on, Martin. Well, you've got to sometimes
get imposing some discipline here.
Yes,
There's more discipline in here than there is at QPR.
I'm looking forward to going to Leicester on Sunday, albeit with a heavy heart.
So we meet in the pub?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably the pub at half time, but I'm going anyway. And as I say, I don't know when I'll see them in the Premiership again. So Premier League, again. So let's go. I'm going to take my boy and have some fun and hopefully enjoy. I might see some players I might not see again as well. So
hopefully Sean Wright Phillips.
Hopefully he won't be there. So
oh God,
but you know what I mean.
Are we a bit unfair on him sometimes? Oh,
no.
Okay.
Yeah, pick on someone your own size.
Shut up. Harsh. Poor. I can imagine Fraser's back with his head off the wall at this point saying, I'm never letting that Irish go.
It's the last one of the season, though, isn't it?
There's 2 points I like to make, actually.
Forget by August, you'll forget.
There's 2 points I like to make, actually. One, can we please, Nike and Tony Finesse never, ever, ever have a crappy kit like we've had in the game, because every time we have a single tiny little Tesco striped kit, we always get relegated, yeah. And let's have some proper QPR
There are those
kit.
supermarkets available.
Yeah, and obviously, and some good ones, yeah. So can we please not have a rubbish kit next season, yeah? There's nothing wrong with last season's, just improve it, yeah. And two, Finney, I'm gonna take. You've got to take a bit of blame, mate.
What the fuck has it got to do with me?
Last year we see your shorts at Huddersfield, yeah. Yeah, right. We get promotion. We've had no shorts in you this year, mate. Yeah, and look what's happened. So you got to shoulder a little bit of blame, there, mate. We need to see them legs out. First away game this season. Well, I think it's going to be Bristol City away. I've got a feeling. Yeah, we're going to be there, aren't we? We'll all be there, won't we?
Yeah, of course. And maybe
will be there.
Maybe your shorts can come to Leicester next week.
No,
start as you mean to go on.
Yeah, come on, Finney, make a commitment.
Are you finished yet, you gobshite?
My R's end was going to be
unbelievable.
I make him dead right.
Yeah, no.
Shorts have got to come out, mate.
My R's end was going to be my annual plea that we start running out to Tina Turner again.
Oh, you keep saying this
because we have
Clive,
never been as good as a team or a club since we stopped running out to Tina Turner in 1995. We've never finished as high in the Premier League.
I had a hatred of pig bag anyway, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, we should start running out to Tina. But your Chelsea story has inspired me to tell you a little Chelsea story. And don't worry, 20 minutes or so, Gabe, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Pretend he's not here.
So
everyone else does.
I got a call a week or so ago
Go
from Jazz, who is a regular member of our travelling party and occasional asker of intelligent questions at your live podcast, which makes her a rare breed. That was a dig and a plug.
Brilliant.
When is the live podcast?
Tuesday, the 26th of May, at the Good Ship Kilburn. But we're coming to that.
There we go. Nice plug.
Paul, seriously, shut up.
So she
thank you for the plug.
Get random call, and she says, "What programs you missing from the Warnock promotion season?
Programs,
match programs." Yeah, I said. She says because there's a Chelsea fan at work with some to get rid of. And I said, "All right, well, I'll go home and have a look." But what is a Chelsea fan at the National Theatre doing with a load of QPR programs? She says, "Well, he went on eBay and got involved in a bidding war for some Chelsea memorabilia, like old programmes, pennants, flags, real historic stuff, back as far as 2001 maybe. And
Is that when that was formed?
yeah, and so he got involved in the bidding war, and his bid was accepted. So the money went out of his account, and the box arrived a week later. And when he opened it, it was just full of old QPR programmes. So I want to say, so I want to say, whoever you are out there, advertising Chelsea memorabilia on eBay for Chelsea fans and sending boxes of old QPR programmes out. You are my hero, and this club will be okay as long as there are people like you out there.
Do you know what? I'm saluting that person. In fact, if that person, who is that person, comes to the pub, I will buy you a drink, and so we'll put...
So will I, yeah.
Easy, steady on. Right, has anyone got anything else to say? Are we done? Right, seriously, and I've done this before, please come to the live podcast. Without you coming and getting tickets, it's hard to carry on. We need your help, we need you to be there. We've got Kevin Gallen, we've got Lee Cook, there's myself, there's Clive, there's David. We could have a laugh, we'd have a crack, and we forget about the relegation. And this podcast is dedicated to the memory of Kiyan Prince. Rest in peace, fella.
QPR, Richmond Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Why not come to the live recording of the QPR podcast on the 26th of May at the Good Ship Kilburn. Doors open at 7. We're joined by Lee Cook, Kevin Gallen, and hopefully a few QPR surprises along the way, where you can ask legends questions, talk to other QPR fans, and you can also purchase tickets by going to www.qprpod.co.uk or go to the Good Ship website and purchase them directly from there. Hope to see you all there and have a good crack. Cheers.
The QPR podcast is a West 12 Media and Burble Media production.